Welcome back to The Pulse. A while ago, the chairman of the Constitutional Review Committee, Professor GHs24m, presented the report to President John Dramani Mahama at the Jubilee House. And if you're just tuning in, a few of the recommendations in that report is that they are recommending the 4-year term limit for a president to be moved to 5. And also, they are recommending that there's not going to be any third term for President John Dramani Mahama, among many other recommendations. Among other recommendations as well, they also want a short campaign period so that, according to them, the president of the day or the government of the day can focus on ruling the country. And of course, we will talk about that. But in the meantime, I have in the studio the counsel for Chairman Wontumi, who has a word or two about this particular subject. But before we speak to you, Andy Piakubi, let's talk about this pressing issue, because Attorney General Dr. Dominic Ayeni says the government will prosecute Wontumi Farms and its directors over alleged fraud, forgery, and a financial loss of more than 24 million cedis to the state. Addressing the government accountability series earlier today, Dr. Ayeni said investigations by the Economic and Organized Crime Office, YOCO, uncovered evidence that the company and its CEO forged a receipt to mislead Exim Bank into believing loan conditions had been met.
The invoice he obtained from Kasama Enterprise by removing the word invoice and replacing it with receipt. This forged receipt was then submitted to Exim Bank as proof that he had purchased the equipment after the disbursement of the loan facility. The owner of Kasama Enterprise confirmed to investigators of the Economic and Organized Crime Office that the only document he issued to Wontumi Farms Limited through Chairman Wontumi was a pro forma invoice and not a receipt. He stated that after he issued the invoice, he never heard from Chairman Wontumi again, despite repeated follow-up calls. The forged receipt submitted to Exim Bank suggested that Kasama Enterprise acknowledged receipt of the sum of 4 million Ghana cedis for the purchase of earth-moving machines and farming equipment. The so-called receipt had on it, and ladies and gentlemen of the press, this is what gave him away, 50 days to supply and 1-year guarantee and service. Now, I hope you understand what this means. That when you receive a pro forma invoice, okay, pro forma means that you've taken it with the intention of purchasing. And so they will give you a timeline, okay, within which the supplier will supply you the equipment. And then also, if there are any services or guarantee terms, they will be indicated on the pro forma invoice. But Chairman Wontumi, as I said, took out invoice and replaced it with receipt to, deceive Exim Bank that he had actually purchased the equipment. Investigations established that Chairman Wontumi did not purchase any equipment and as such could not register any equipment in the joint names of Exim Bank and Wontumi Farms Limited as per the loan conditions, even though funds were disbursed to him to that effect. That all the equipment he claimed he purchased could not be traced. Investigations established that though Chairman Wontumi submitted the forged receipt to Exim Bank, he stated during interrogation that he purchased second-hand brand new, whatever that means, second-hand brand new equipment, and that the receipts of all the purchases, including the documents on the equipment, were all sent to Exim Bank. However, Exim Bank has confirmed that neither Chairman Wontumi nor Wontumi Farms Limited submitted any documents covering the purchase of the required equipment except the forged receipts. In fact, when our investigators went to the ground, they realized that there were some obsolete, decrepit machines on the side, tractors dating back that were manufactured in the 1970s, and that were not functioning, were the ones that had been placed on the farm. So this was definitely a grand scheme designed to defraud Exim Bank. It is clear from our investigation that Chairman Wontumi and his company, Wontumi Farms Limited, made fraudulent misrepresentations to Exim Bank with a view to obtaining the loan facility, and in fact did obtain the loan facility. The equipment they represented were to be purchased were never procured. The farming enterprise never materialized, and so no young persons were employed in Asare Nkwanta in the Ashanti region. But more important.
So that's the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayini, a while ago at the Jubilee House during the government's accountability series. Let's come to the studio and engage Andy Apiakube. He's the former MP for Asante North and also lawyer for Bernard Ntwi-Buesiako, probably known as Chairman Wontumi. Mr. Apiakube, grateful for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, my brother.
Before we dive into the legal troubles of your client, we watched the Constitutional Review Committee present their findings to President John Mahama a while ago. You have a few words to say about that. They proposed a 5-year term limit for presidents in this country instead of 4. They say that in the sub-region, that is the norm. Do you agree with that?
I do support that position. I think it is necessary that we give more room for governance rather than just stepping out of one office into campaigning. So 5 years, fine. If it had been even 6 years, I would have even supported it because I know how long it takes for government to stabilize and start governing. So the 5 years is fine, except that it must not come into effect during the pendency of this administration because you don't change rules in the course of a game.
Okay.
So if it's made to take prospective effect from the next arrangement, the next governance, I'll be all for it. It's a very potent contribution and change. So I support it.
Right. Andy Apiakube is the former MP for Asante North. For the MPP. He's also the counsel for the chairman of the MPP in the Ashanti region, Bernard Ntwi-Buesiako, popularly known as Chairman Wontumi. You're in support of the proposals that have been made, of course. And of course, if you're just tuning in, we have also been following this developing story about the Attorney General, Dominic Ayini, a while ago, who addressed the nation. He said that they're going to prosecute the chairman of the Ashanti region's New Patriotic Party, Bernard Ntwi-Buesiako, popularly known as Chairman Wontumi. And he said that the state has frozen Wontumi's assets, which include a 50 million Ghana cedis account belonging to his insurance company. And also, there have been a wide range of claims by the Attorney General. Of course, he says that he will prefer charges against the embattled Ashanti regional chairman of the MPP after Christmas, and that should be in the next few weeks. We have the lawyer for Chairman Wontumi in the studio who is ready to speak to us on the wide range of accusations that have been leveled against his client. Andy, did you hear the charges, although the AG is yet to formally profile those charges? He says he will do that at a later date. Did you hear it for the first time, just like most of us did on TV?
Yes, I did. In this morning, watching the television, I heard the Attorney General pronounce a possible charge of fraud. I don't know how he's going to even prove it. So I'm sure that we'll leave it to the Attorney General to come out with his charges, charge sheet, and the facts that support the charge. So I don't know. I just heard it today. And in fact, my client also called me and told me that he also heard it, the news that he's going to be charged with defrauding by false pretenses. So we will await the charge sheet and then we'll respond appropriately.
The amount is over 20 million Ghana cedis. I see that you were trying to get the amount.
Well, yes, first and foremost. In fact, earlier on we had heard in the news and the social media that Chairman Wontumi had borrowed amounts in dollars to the tune of $20 million, $30 million. All kinds of figures were being churned out. But it is interesting to note that now Chairman Wontumi did not contract any agreement with Exim Bank in dollar denomination. The amount of money contracted in the transaction is in cedis, and indeed the total amount, if my information is right, is in the region of 18.7 million Ghana cedis, not in dollars as people wanted us to believe. So that is the beginning of the transaction and the beginning of the discussions on it. Again, there was a contract between Exim Bank and indeed Wontumi Farms.
Right.
And I mentioned Wontumi Farms because the parties in the contract were Exim Bank and Wontumi Farms. Suffice it to say that Attorney General also mentioned Chairman Wontumi as a director of the company. It is not as of preference that you attack a director of a company when the company itself is in existence, except that there are conditions to meet before you can even bring the directors in, which conditions we are waiting for the Attorney General's office to prove. Nevertheless, there is an existing company known as Wontumi Farms, and Wontumi Farms is in contract with Exim Bank Ghana Limited. And I want us to limit it to the transaction between the two entities, not to try to identify the parties behind the company and, designate them as associating themselves with political parties. That is very unnecessary. So I think that we should concentrate on the transaction between Exim Bank and Wontumi Farms.
Right. One of the many accusations that the AG made against your client is that he says that Chairman Wontumi forged a 4 million Ghana cedis invoice that he received from Kasama Enterprise, and he removed the word invoice and replaced it with receipt to make it seem like he had purchased something, and that 4 million Ghana cedis was the receipt to deceive Exim Bank.
I would rather try to reframe your question to mean Wontumi Farms submitted a receipt.
Yes.
It could have come from any official of Wontumi Farms, but I'm not too certain whether it was brought by Chairman Wontumi himself, but carried the inscription of Wontumi Farms making the deposit or submitting the receipt. But in all this, if the receipts were forged, were there not officials in Exim Bank to determine whether or not these receipts were wholesome? Was it the case that they were complicit to whatever allegations that are being brought out now? Is it the case that there is negligence on the part of the company Exim Bank to overlook all these things that Attorney General is alleging? Is it the case that all these things happened under the strict supervision of officials of Exim Bank? Is it the case that Exim Bank also procured a consultant to supervise the operation of this company in respect of this transaction? Is it the case that these consultants were properly procured and they had the necessary mandate to protect the interests of the bank? Is it the case that they reneged on such responsibilities? Is it the case that they themselves may have done that? Is it the case that the equipments were procured through the consultant procured by Exim Bank? Is it the case that there is a shared responsibility between the two parties and their associates to ensure compliance with the terms of the contract? Is it the case that all such conditions prevailed and were met? Is it the case that culpability lies with only one party and not the other? Is it the case that culpability may lie in the opposite party rather than the one being referred to at the moment? So these are all questions that are begging for answers.
Very, very interesting. There are so many case scenarios that you've mentioned, but you said that this morning you spoke to your client after the AG made those pronouncements at the Jubilee House, and you said that you cannot be certain that this invoice, also known as receipt, according to the AG, was from Wontumi himself or some employees from Wontumi Farms. When you spoke to him, didn't he tell you who it was from?
Look, either way, it was Wontumi Farms. Whoever may have come representing Wontumi Farms was doing whatever he would have done in the name of Wontumi Farms. So what I was trying to just bet your mind to is the fact that it is Wontumi Farms in this transaction, not any other personality.
Okay.
And when it is necessary to lift the veil and look at directors, we'll get to that point. But for now, the transaction is purely between Wontumi Farms and Exim Bank. And this was a civil transaction between the two parties, contractual in nature, and terms and responsibilities on both parties. So we need to weigh the responsibilities on both parties and the performance of both parties and see who carries more culpability than the other, or who carries all or none.
Another of the many accusations is that Wontumi Farms in 2017 submitted an application for a loan to cultivate maize on 100,000 acre of land and to purportedly, employ young people. But the AG says even at that time that loan was applied, the company was not even registered.
Oh, but it happens. Most times promoters can go into transactions when the companies have not been incorporated. We call those ones pre-incorporation contracts and or transactions. And these are confirmed by the companies upon incorporation. So it is not new. It happens all the time. So, and it doesn't bring any criminality when you go into transactions representing a supposed company to be incorporated in future. No, but there's no crime in this. It happens all the time. So even though I'm not privy to the time of the agreement and the time of incorporation, because it just happened today and I have not consulted my client to be abreast with all the documentation. But even if it happens like that, it doesn't mean that there is any criminality in it, because pre-incorporation contracts can go into promoters of companies can get into pre-incorporation transactions, and that is normal.
But what if that transaction goes through and the company is never incorporated?
Are you suggesting that Wontumi Farms was never incorporated?
No, I'm just asking.
I'm saying that...
I'm just asking a question.
Well, if it gets to a point that the company is never incorporated, then the promoters are liable for whatever transactions they were attending to. But in this particular instance, I am very positive that Wontumi Farms was subsequently, if at the time of the contracting, it had not been incorporated, subsequently it was incorporated. So I'm saying that, to my knowledge, there is an entity called Wontumi Farms.
Right. Andy Apiakuvi, I'll come back to you shortly, but let me bring in your learned colleague, Kweku Ansah-Sarri, who's the former director at the Ghana School of Law. Glad you could join me this afternoon. The AG...
But let me set it right. He is not my colleague, he's my director. He is so many years my senior.
Okay.
I cannot be his colleague. The director, former director of the law school.
Oh, okay.
He cannot be.
I mean, I mentioned colleague in the fact that both of you are lawyers.
In the profession, but he's still
your senior.
So many years.
Right. Mr. Ansah-Sarri, glad you could join me this afternoon. Of course, you also had the Attorney General earlier today make several pronouncements, and Wontumi was not the only person that he mentioned. He also mentioned Kofi Akpalu of the LPG as well. There have been concerns about the Attorney General publicly coming out to, proffer charges against people, individuals who he believes have engaged in corruption and corruption-related offenses, even before officially or formally charging them. Does that surprise you? And does what he did today surprise you as well?
Good afternoon. Yes, it did surprise me because you remember when he was appointed, you interviewed me as to whether you'd be able, to execute his functions efficiently and effectively, and I said yes. But I also added, I hasten to add that he should not politicize the Attorney General's office, because the Attorney General's office is one office that is for the people of Ghana, and therefore whoever in the Attorney General must be circumspect and measured, in its utterances. And must come clean out of, a political structure and hold himself out as the Attorney General. This display of, legal, political, media trial is not going to help my good friend Dominic Ayine. I think that today, this press conference of today must be the last of any such, press briefings to announce publicly who are in some criminal infractions and therefore deserving of prosecution. If he has a fact and he has an arguable case, he must go to court, because an arguable case is a case, that is capable of being sustained in the court. This prima facie thing must come to, at home. The media will not be dragged, if the court of public opinion doesn't exist, for the type of, crimes he's announcing. If he's ready, let him go to court. If he's not ready, he should shut up. That is all.
But Mr. Nsasari, he says that he's the People's Attorney General. He's serving at the pleasure of the president, obviously, but the president was also elected by Ghanaians. So he deems it fit that whatever case that he's pursuing, he has to let the people know. Yes, it might be novel, but don't you think it's something that we should come to accept?
No. As I said, the Attorney General's chamber, exists for the Republic of Ghana. And whoever is Attorney General must be discerning, to, know what is good for the people of Ghana and what is not good for the people. I will urge my good friend, Dr. Dominic Ayine, Attorney General, to go through, his law, the handing over of previous Attorney General. And you see that each time an Attorney General is leaving office, especially the NYC at that day, to handing over notes, refresh his text, and then ask, for a handcard when that was being said, what said, and the pledge he made the Republic of Ghana, that as Attorney General, he will make sure that it does not fall into the office, that the first Attorney General also from any political things and caprice, and all we do, what will amount, just as, the office man. What type of politics is my thinking. I think that's one thing.
Right.
Public are not there. The people are not there driving.
Right.
The people are not driving. It is the law. And he must do and act in accordance with the law.
Right. Mr. Nsasari, I would want you to reposition yourself for me, but one of the substantive things that he mentioned today is that one of the persons in the National Service Scheme scandal actually wanted to pay 22 million Ghana cedis out of 33 million Ghana cedis through plea bargaining, and he said he rejected it. Do you think he made the wrong decision?
What I'm saying is that whatever he does, he should at least do to completion before, coming public.
Right.
Today he says this, he has a prima facie case. Tomorrow he doesn't have a prima facie case. He just, thereby putting the risking his own life and the lives of, other people. If he doesn't have a good case, as a good lawyer and an Attorney General, he should know that he doesn't have a good case, and therefore there's no need to go to court. But if he has a good case, and we lawyers, refer to it as an arguable case, an arguable case is the case, that one, can sustain to completion either successfully or even lose. But if you don't have an arguable case, it will remain a prima facie case at first sight, in my opinion. In my opinion, it's not, law. In my opinion, it's, the court of public opinion. In the court, we say, irresistible inference that the prospect of, the case succeeding is very high, and therefore I'll take it to court. If the attorney general goes to court and he's the official leader, everyone in the courtroom must give, way to the attorney general to present his case. If he's not ready, he shouldn't go there, because the moment he enters the courtroom, we will all bow, and then you take precedence and do his case. If he is not ready, please, he shouldn't open his mouth. He's embarrassing himself in the nation. What is this? Today I'm holding a press conference, accountability. The law, doesn't play itself out like that.
Mr. Sansari, I wanted to pick your thought on a particular statement that he made regarding, I don't know if you heard me, regarding the National Service Scheme scandal, which he said that somebody offered to pay 22 million cedis out of 36 million Ghana cedis through plea bargaining, and with oral and all these Operation Recover or Loot, which this government is championing. He said that he rejected that, and I wanted to pick your thoughts. Do you think that was the right decision, rejecting that?
It would be a wrong decision. If someone has been accused of embezzlement, and the person, is striking as reparation, he should go for it, because he, in one breath, I remember some 2-3 months ago, he said he wasn't out, to get, the innocent person into fair. That what he desires is that those who have stolen, are made to refund, the stolen, money to the state, which I think, is the best way out, because if, this 22 million, if the person goes, to prison, and Ghana doesn't get, the money back, who loses? It is the state that loses. So I will, say that I would have thought that he will grab it, because it's an opportunity that will bring some money to our coffers. Then secondly, this plea bargaining thing, in the Dr. I.L. Ohinijan case, the then Attorney General of Senator, was roundly condemned, for entering into, such plea bargaining and coming up with the Chief Justice at the time, roundly condemned him that if you do, any such thing, please let it remain in the courtroom. And then, when the judgment is given, the whole public will get to know. But even before you do it, you announce it. What happens if tomorrow it is not 22 million, but 2 million? Then you have to say that he, Ayile, has rather accepted a bribe. And, these petty things one day will go against him. And then the people, will start for his head and ask for his removal. If I were, Ayile, I'd rather, not open my mouth, too widely, for anybody to close it for me. Go to court with what you have.
Right.
Prove your mettle that you are an attorney general. And today you are in the daily graphic, tomorrow daily guide, another time Sunday, whatever. It's not a good thing. I have listened, to your conversation with my learned friend who doesn't want, to refer to me as his colleague. At least I enjoyed it. He made, very weighty, points that are meritorious. But one thing that I would like to say is that even though it may be civil, and acting may appear to be civil, at first sight, yet events will indicate, that there's some, criminality or criminal propensities involved. In that case, If it touches the borders of fraud,
Right.
for instance, fraud is a terrible thing and is deceptive, therefore criminal, imposture. So it may begin as a civil thing, but end up, as a criminal offense. In that case, the person, however innocent, he might have been, because of the element of fraud, will have to be prosecuted.
Right.
That's my contribution to what he said. So it is not just that, it is a pre-incorporation contract. If he has, a criminal intent to defraud, Edinburgh,
Right.
that element of fraud, will be something, worth investigate.
Okay.
And once investigation is being carried out, it leaves the realm of civility, to one of, penalty. And therefore, whoever, is a culprit can be, prosecuted. So the long arm of the criminal law is always there, to catch people in such deceptive conduct.
Mr. Kweku Ansasari, thank you very much. He's the former director at the Ghana School of Law. Now, in a related development, Dr. Ayeni says Kofi Akpalu of the Liberal Party of Ghana, LPG, and others will be charged over alleged forgery and related offences linked to a cocoa board feeder roads contract. He explained that investigations uncovered suspicious transactions involving Poma Universal Ghana Limited, leading to findings of misrepresentation and the unauthorized handling of checks tied to the 29 million Ghana cedis contract awarded in December 2022.
The exact figure of the amount that is involved in this, criminal enterprise from the Exim Bank before we file charges in court. Ladies and gentlemen, in the case involving Mr. Percival Akpalu of the Liberal Party of Ghana, the Financial Intelligence Center flagged and filed a suspicious transaction report with First Bank Ghana Limited regarding transactions on an account belonging to Poma Universal Ghana Limited. That is a company owned by the said Kofi Akpalu. Following the STR, that is a suspicious transaction report by the FIC, the Economic and Organized Crime began an investigation into the matter. The investigations revealed that Poma Universal Ghana Limited, a business entity owned entirely by a lady called Ekua Poma, was the legitimate contractor that was awarded a feeder roads contract by Cocoa Board. The contract, which was valued at 29.5 million Ghana cedis, was awarded in December 2020. Although the project commenced and an initial amount was properly deposited into Poma Universal Ghana Limited, subsequent payments raised serious concerns regarding misrepresentation, forgery, and unauthorized handling of the checks. Our investigations revealed that Akpalu secretly incorporated another company, separate and distinct from Poma Universal Ghana Limited, also known as Poma Universal Ghana Limited, but deliberately added H to the Poma. So Poma is P-O-M-A-A, all right, Ghana Limited, which is a company which is owned by Ekua Poma. What the company that he incorporated added H to the Poma, so it became, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the same Poma, Poma Ghana Limited, Universal Ghana Limited. But the difference was just the H at the end of Poma. And so after having done this, between December 2022 and June 2024, Akpalu collected 8 checks issued by Cocoa Board in the name of Poma Universal Ghana Limited. That is the original and authentic Poma, totaling 3.1 million. That is 3,169,432 Ghana cedis and 22 pesos, and deposited them into the account of his own company, that is also Poma Ghana Limited with an H at First Bank Ghana Limited. Again, our investigations confirmed that Ekua Poma was unaware of both the existence of the Poma Ghana Limited, that is the second company, and the diversion of the funds until Cocoa Board contacted her in June 2024 regarding outstanding balances on the contract. She subsequently discovered that Akpalu had collected and misdirected the payments without her consent. Ekuapoma also alleged that Akpalu forged her signature on the cocoa board contract using her former name, Mercy Owusu, to secure the agreement without her authorization. First Bank Ghana Limited conducted an internal investigations and corroborated the fraud allegations that we have made, concluding.
All right, that's the Attorney General also saying that he's going to proffer charges against Kofi Akpalu of the LPG right after Christmas. And I still have Andy Apiakubi, who's the counsel for Chairman Wontumi, in the studio with me. Mr. Apiakubi, your departing words. What do you have? Of course, you're going to battle this in court, right?
I'll wait for the charge sheet to be sent to us, and then we'll go to court to... In fact, my job is not to prove the innocence of my client. My job is to look at the evidence of the Attorney General, which must pass the test of beyond reasonable doubt, and I punch holes into the evidence that they have and challenge on the two elements of the actus and the mensura. We'll see how it goes. At the end of the prosecution, we will do what is necessary to make sure that either the prosecution goes on or prosecution is truncated. Nevertheless, I see Exim Bank more culpable than even my client, even if there is any such allegation. Because Exim Bank received application from my client, and they invited him to come into the transaction on terms. And in this particular transaction, they agreed that a consultant from Brazil ought to be procured. Such consultant was not procured because there is a reason why they went for that Brazilian consultant, because my client had indicated that Wontumi Farms didn't have experience in the area, and therefore there was the need for somebody who had experience to come in. They changed the consultancy, they procured their own, and it was Exim Bank who did that, and the consultant was expected to go into procurement of most of the equipment. Most of the logistics had to be procured through the consultant. So whether or not such equipment or logistics were procured, we could ask the consultant questions. And indeed, the people in Exim Bank, were they not approving payments? If indeed they did. And even after the Attorney General said that Exim Bank confirmed that Wontumi Farms did not submit evidence of purchase of equipment. But beyond that realization, they still advance monies to Wontumi Farms. So who is culpable? Is it negligence on the part of the company and its officers? And indeed, we are waiting. When we come to the court, then we will see how much money has been disbursed and for what purpose and to who. You cannot aggregate all that and say that we paid this kind of money to Wontumi Farms. The investigators should have also found how the disbursement was made and to who the disbursement were made and for what purpose. And also see people who may have acted based on influence and then identify all of them. It is not going to be a case of Wontumi Farms alone as the accused person. It couldn't have happened in the bank. If it happened, it did. It couldn't have happened if people in the bank didn't have interest in what happened.
I see.
So where are the co-accusers? Is it the case that people in the bank will just wrap up something and stay behind and now be throwing stones onto the pitch? No. Those who acted in person and on behalf of the company, they must show face and indicate their performance and take part of the blame, if any. So we are waiting for the prosecution to start. But like Professor was saying, I think it would be better for us to prosecute our cases in court, because the invitation of the public into cases like this, in particular, identify persons in political clothing is not too healthy.
Okay.
Because for now we are dealing with Wontumi Farms.
Yes.
Not necessarily any political party associated with Wontumi Farms. So if there's a director of the company who has political leanings, that is beyond the transaction. It shouldn't precede
it's political affiliation.
Yeah, it's not necessary at all.
Okay.
We all belong to different political opinions. But again, we are answerable for what we do in our private life and in our business life.
Okay.
So let's maintain the identity of the parties in the transaction as ESIM and Wontumi Farms.
Right.
I didn't hear them mention any name, personal name of any of the people in ESIM who participated in this transaction. And I was surprised.
Right.
Why are we going beyond that to even announce the name of Chairman Wontumi and even announce the political party that he belongs to? So those people in ESIM Bank, they don't belong to political parties. Or they don't have names. So let's see. In fact, let us not politicize the case.
Right.
And I want to plead with everybody. Dr. Aine is my professor. He taught me at the University of Ghana Law School. And I'm a very good friend of his. We'll go into the prosecution without any fear of intimidation from any party.
Okay.
We enjoy each other's company and each other's professional advice. So let's wait until we are there.
Okay.
Justice will be served, we believe, and justice will be done.
Indeed. Mr. Andy Appiah, be glad you could join me this evening. He's the lawyer for Chairman Wontumi, also known as Bernard Entry Boesiako. The pause returns after this break.